Cavecast, the uncensored show for nerds of all kinds.
We've lived exclusively on and near Indian burial ground for the majority of our lives. The area that we live in has no shortage of maybe a story of something happening or, you know, people around us that have experienced things. So essentially what we wanted to do with this episode is that we've asked our audience and we've said, all right, look, you know, we want to know what you guys want to hear us talk about. And this was kind of a big one, was that they want to know our take on paranormal things. There's a lot that we can dive into, and much like the Office review, I doubt that we will get into every single thing that's ever happened to us.
Probably not.
Or,
well, I mean,
maybe
we might be able to touch on stuff and then, you know, maybe have to elaborate more later on something. But yeah.
Yeah. Mainly, I would say that what always stuck out to me was the story that Mom always told us that she had dealt with, which, I mean, there's a scary story of it on my other channel, Copyright 425, if you want to know the nitty gritty of what happened. But that was kind of like my earliest memory of realizing that someone close to me had had a very intense paranormal experience. I don't know if it's the same thing for you, but yeah, that's what it was for me.
I mean, probably. Well, no, I feel like maybe I had like my own stuff prior, but I guess didn't know that's what it was. But I do remember Mom, talking about that story about, her friend that had passed, and then the Ouija board. There was the necklace, that had been thrown away, and all this stuff, even by multiple people, and things just kept showing up. So, but anyways, so that, I mean, I do remember Mom always talking about, well, not always, but like talking about that growing up, and then having like my own experiences over time was, I don't want to say weird, but like weird because it like wasn't the same. So like in my mind, like, the things would happen the same, like she did, you know what I mean? Like it was going to just follow or something, but it didn't in the way I thought. So
yeah. What would you say is one of your earliest paranormal experiences? Because I think I know the answer, but I kind of want to give the audience, just kind of a groundwork of like maybe what made us realize that, oh, this can happen to even us, or like, this is maybe what's out there or something.
So I think one of the ones that I don't know that I've really verbalized a whole lot was actually right over here. Before the one that was one of the stories on your channel, I would remember hearing footsteps, and like from upstairs, because there was the basement and there was like that kind of little catwalk almost thing, and I remember hearing footsteps and like going up and down the stairs and thinking, oh, everybody's asleep or nobody's up there or whatever, and it's like, oh, it was the cat. Well, no, the cat would be sitting right next to me or in the next room or whatever. So it's like, well, how are these noises happening? I never really put it together, but I would say the one that I really put together was the demon face on the wall.
Right.
So
yeah. And what's nuts is that when I heard about that story, it was kind of around the time that I was dealing with some personal stuff that was happening with somebody that I was very close to at the time. And essentially, it kind of freaked me out, because when I asked Mom, I said, well, the earliest memory I have of a haunting happening was when we spent time at Aunt Heidi's, because she lived out in an area that was very active. Yeah. And I kind of looked at it as a way to like make myself feel better, where it's like, oh, I didn't experience that stuff. I wasn't around it until then. And I'm like, it never happened on, this particular house. I think I was maybe like single digits. I was like 4, 5, 6, and I didn't want to tell her about the experience that I did have there, but I was kind of trying to play it off like, oh, like what I saw didn't happen. It wasn't real.
Right.
And Mom basically, I'm not going to tell your story for you, but she, from her perspective, she basically said that, oh no, like Eric was terrified. Like there was something that was happening, and it was, her and, my biological dad trying to figure this out. And I think, it got to the point that did you draw it on the wall with crayon, or did he draw it on the wall with crayon? I can't remember.
I don't know that there was crayon involved. I remember long story short, guys, there was, my room had 2 different windows, And then on the part of the wall, there was, you could usually see like where the tree was and the, shadows or whatnot, just like any other night. Mm-hmm. So this particular night, I saw this, it wasn't the same. And like the shapes had changed over time because like the tree or like a branch would break or something along those lines. But I just remember going, well, that's different. And it was probably about like this big, I'd have to say. Mm. And it was almost like eye level.
Right, because wasn't it your bed was almost kind of like the wall was here and then your bed was here. And it was kind of, if you were like laying down, you were kind of looking right at it.
Yeah, it was like across from me, like towards like my door, like almost on the other side where it had this like weird like bump out from the wall where like probably like a duct was or something. Mm. And I saw this face and I kept going, oh, it's the tree. It's the tree, right? Well, I could see the tree moving, like the shadows, like when the wind would blow, and this thing wasn't moving.
It was just stationary.
It was stationary, and all the other shadows were moving, and I'm like, well, that's odd. So my brain was just going through all this stuff, so I eventually get up, and like I get closer, and I look, and like there's like distinctly something there. Mm. So I go in and wake them up or whatever it was, and they're like, okay. So they come in and they see it. Lights are off still. And so your dad being like, well, turn the light on. Mm-hmm. Well, it was still there. Even with the light on, I started tracing with my finger and I watched Mom's face. Like I touched it.
This is like every scary ass scene in a like scary movie when a kid moves in like, no, it's right here. Look, see, it's dancing or it's doing it. It's just like, bro, he's not stopping. Like, yeah. And you were never a kid that was afraid to go to sleep.
No,
So this was very out of character.
It was the fact of it. It wasn't that I couldn't go to sleep. It bugged me that I didn't know what it was. I don't know that, like, yes, it freaked me out, but I don't think it was, I never felt like in danger, but it felt, it felt threatening, if that makes sense. But when I just remember tracing it, and I remember Mom kind of looking at your dad like, oh shit. Like I can see what he's tracing now. Like, and it, like I said, it just didn't go away. So I don't really remember what happened after that. Like I want to say I still slept in my room, but cause like you said, I didn't really I wasn't really afraid of stuff like that, but that is the earliest thing I remember going, this is something fucking weird. Mm-hmm. So, and it was at that house. And I know you had an experience as well.
Yeah. Mind you, the way that the hallway worked was that your bedroom was the last door on the right.
Correct.
And then mine was the middle door on the left.
Yeah, because Mom and Randy's was directly across from mine. And you were before that.
It's still something that freaks me out to this day.
You had that attic, though, that spot that went up into the attic.
Oh, my God. I totally forgot about that.
How?
I didn't even put the two and two together of like, I was experiencing stuff and there's an attic where something like
you literally had the door that went up. Like you had to open the door to walk up to then open the thing up to get in, like an Annabelle house or something like that.
What's weird is that I have very few memories of it because I was told not to go up there. And it wasn't because, stay away from like the witchcraft stuff that's hanging up there or like we never had any of that. But it's like, it was, not like a scary story or scary movie, like kind of a thing. It was more so like, no, like the flooring is not finished. Right. You're little. Don't go up there. You're going to hurt yourself.
Correct.
So I guess the attic's kind of irrelevant for the story, but it just kind of freaks me out now that I put the two and two together. Yeah. But I didn't really have a lot of experiences, even like kind of like as an adult. Like, there are very isolated incidents of like people that were around me. However, this one did not require anybody else. I was by myself. I know for a fact it was in the middle of the night. I could not tell you what time. This is before cell phones, so I didn't, I wasn't 3 like playing on a phone.
Right.
It was the 90s. So I'm going to bed I went to bed and I woke up and I had this pile of blocks that I had across the way that was on top of my chest of toys. And the next thing I knew was that I saw them start to like move. Mm. And what's weird is that you would think like, they were like singly, like, certain ones were like flying. No, like it became almost like this black mass. And I don't remember why I woke up. And I maybe in the story that I recorded, I think I maybe said I heard a noise. It's very possible.
Sure.
But I just remember my eyes were open, and I was looking directly at it when my eyes opened. And this black mass went from being almost like mountain shape to here's a torso, here's a head, here's the arms. And this thing was just sitting there like weeping angel, just staring at me, waiting for me to blink. And I say that because I blinked and it was closer, and it kept getting closer as I was like, because I thought I was dreaming. So I was like, whoa. So I just pulled my covers over my head and I went to bed terrified. And Mom even said when I told her this story, she said that, yeah, I noticed you really didn't play with those blocks anymore, and I don't understand why. Like I didn't understand why, and I'm like, yeah, well, that was why. So
right.
It was that realization moment for me that you and I both had individual experiences that were very different, that maybe were different entities or different things that could have been happening. And just, I don't know, it makes me understand that there is something that's happening that we don't understand in this world.
Right.
I think that to say that there is nothing, or that there's a plane of existence that we can't see, or that there's something that we don't understand, like, we don't even know about all the fish in the ocean, and also ultimately like what's there. Like, we know more about space than our ocean.
Sure.
And that's a physical thing.
And that's weird.
You know, so it's just, to me, I think that there's a big mystery of what's out there, and like what possibly can exist, and the scary shit that can happen. And I guess my question for you is, having that experience and then moving on, having more as you grew up, how much of a skeptic of the actual paranormal are you? Like, say that somebody's telling a story, or, they're talking about something that's happened to them, or like, how, like, do you start off skeptical, or like, how do you approach a paranormal topic when somebody talks to you?
So not really. I don't really feel like I'm skeptical about it. It's one of those where I do want to hear the story, or like see what some similarities are, or like what they did. And I take everything with a very open mind. I just don't like paranormal movies.
Right.
They bore the fuck out of me. I don't know why. I should be all up in them, but I'm not. They're horrible to me. I can't get through it. Not one. I don't think I found one that I really enjoy. And it's weird because I feel like it's up my alley. But when a person is telling me their like personal story, then I listen. It's real. Even if it's a movie that based on true events, Annabelle, The Conjuring, all that fucking snooze fest. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't want to watch them. I try every time. It's still the same shit as far as like how I feel about them. Now, hearing the real story, or like reading about it or something, that's different. Right. I don't know why. But other than that, no, I feel like most of the time when people tell me things like that, I believe them. I know it's real. I know that there are real things out there. There are spirits, there are evil things, whatever. Like, I've seen them myself. I've had them take over my body before. I've seen the devil. Like, I know I have. It's scary how real it actually is. So yeah. What about you?
I'm kind of a practical realist when it comes to those things. Is that, for instance, just because a door slams in your house in the middle of the night doesn't necessarily mean you have a ghost.
Okay, what kind of windows are open? Do you have an animal? Like,
you also might have an intruder. Like, it's, there's been many times that I've been in this house by myself, you included, and there's I would say that there's maybe some things that we haven't been able to explain, or like maybe but it's never been to the point of, I'm terrified to go to sleep. The only thing that's made me terrified to go to sleep this past year was Smile. And it's so like, it's you, like, it was that idea of just something is just standing there and watching you. And like,
that is creepy.
It's, I don't know, getting to the point is that when it comes to somebody's story, is that, especially if I am in the house that is going on, number one, I try to remember that this information is being fed into me subconsciously. Just like Aunt Heidi said, was that if she invited someone to her house and made up a whole story about how some dude killed himself in your bedroom that you're going to be sleeping in, you're probably going to see a freaky dude.
Yeah.
Like it's just, that's how, and that's the thing that sucks about it, is that it's that idea of trying to make sure that you're getting rid of all the BS and just looking at the facts.
Right.
And I try to look at it in the idea that if there's no way to explain how these things have happened besides paranormal, that's when you've got something. To me, I think that is, it's the relevance of, like, looking at, not the relevance, we can't edit. It's like look at a situation of when someone is being demonically possessed. There's a lot of things that you could look at and say that it's fake. And, it's like, oh, they're crazy, they're this. It's like, no, they're probably on meth. It's so, like,
right.
It's,
yeah,
their voice is changing. It's like, okay, well, people can change their voices. When it starts to become compelling for me is when people start speaking Latin that have never spoken it before.
Yeah.
When there are moments that people acquire a huge boost of adrenaline and they're able to fight back in a way that they've never been able to. They're saying things that either the person would never say or would have no knowledge of. That to me is where, like, I kind of look at it, because I mean, there's more things than just possession, but, like, that's kind of how I look at it, is that is there enough evidence here to basically look at the situation and go, yeah, that doesn't make sense, because that's what paranormal is. It's completely not normal. It's like, it's this thing that is unnatural. It defies all of our understanding of how the physical world works and where everything else has a part in it. So to me, I think that I try to approach it with a lot of skepticism at first, because we did have an instance in this house where we thought we heard somebody in the basement. And it was just like, okay, like, that was weird. And, like, mind you, like, we're standing in the kitchen with the door open, just talking. And for a second I thought, is somebody downstairs?
Yeah.
It wasn't, oh, the house is haunted. It was like, that's
somebody's here. Yeah.
That's where my mind goes.
Right.
So that's kind of where I live. But yeah, it's to me, I think that there's a lot of really freaky shit that happens, but there is also a lot of kooks, and there's a lot of people that want attention, and there's a lot of people that fake things, so.
And that's where it's like, I really welcome the fact that we want to try. Keyword is try, not going to, just so you guys are aware.
I'm terrified.
But to go to, like, see the Lizzie Borden house, what was it? The Conjuring home. And then stay the night at the actual one that we have by us, which is the prison.
You want to stay the night. I want no part.
He won't do it. Like,
I can't do it, dude.
It's like, I want to take us to these places and try them out, because it's almost like a reaction in the fact of, I don't want to say I'm the skeptical one, but I'm the skeptical one. Kyle's the, for lack of a better term, the wuss, if you will, like, as far as, like, that, where it goes to that.
I wear it proudly.
Well, right. But what I mean is, as far as, like, that yin and yang. So to me, it's not, I don't welcome things like that, but mine is like, I'm not afraid of that stuff. I truly think that I have seen the worst side of evil for real in person before so many times, that other things, whether they're bad spirits or the crooked man that I've seen or whatever it is, it don't scare me.
Right.
It's not a macho thing. It's not a alpha male thing. It's just that I don't know why. I think it's because I've seen such dark things that other things just don't compare.
Right.
And so going to the Lizzie Borden house, all right, yeah, well, this is a small house, like, okay, nice place, and then move the fuck on.
Right.
I went there. Now, I'm not gonna taunt spirits either and be like, where the fuck are you? And I'm not a fucking idiot. Well, let's not get hasty, but no, just, that's the kind of stuff that does intrigue me. The movies don't. And like I said before, it should be right up my alley, but it's not. And then there's you, who you love watching those things, and it's like, that's kind of like your jam, and I'm just like, dude, how can you watch this? But we're the same, but, like, very different when it comes to that stuff, as far as like, paranormal. Yeah,
and it's, I don't know, I find more and more that the older that I get is that, you start to think about, your finality of life, and the idea of, like, what is after, and what are these things that I'm experiencing, or that I'm seeing, or people saying that they've spent time in heaven and hell, like, again, how do you know that their account is even true? But it's so interesting to me that from the place that I grew up in, is that Actually, no, both of us, like Eric and I both grew up in, I would not say religious homes. We grew up in a Christian home.
Yeah.
It was not the negative side of it. Like, don't worry. Like, our parents could drop the hammer in a,
Sure.
theological way, or could drop a hammer, if we're just being, asshole kids. But we were never really surrounded by that kind of stuff. Like,
not really.
More so like when my dad kind of came into the picture, because, like mom and you would like watch scary movies as a kid. Like, I never really got exposed to that, but like we grew up in a very like, stereotypical home. We had the front yard, we had the dog, dad worked a 9 to 5, mom stayed home. Like, there was not a lot of crazy stuff that was going on. But when you think about it, is that our belief system at that point, being a Christian, is acknowledging the idea that God is 3 in 1. Mm-hmm. He became a man, lived his life till he was 33, died on the cross, then resurrected himself, and now he is alive. When somebody comes to me with a crazy idea, or like something that's happened to them and they're shocked that I believe them, I'm like, I literally came from a belief system that these are the things that I like, and I would say that I still adhere to this day in different ways. And it's like, why would I not like listen to your story? I've had people in my life that have talked about whenever they were pursuing like paganism, or they were pursuing Wiccan, and talking about how like, oh yeah, I heard that there's a possibility that like, I'm probably going to butcher this, but like pixies, like you can attract these things and they'll mess with your crystals. They'll do these things, like you'll hear them like moving in the middle of the night. And I'm not here to say whether those things are in fact true, but when they were talking to me about this, I listened. Because look, man, if I believed in this thing,
right?
What else? Why can't I believe something else is real?
Sure.
So it's just like, we already know that there's many animals that have existed on this planet that defy everything that we can understand about what is natural about the world today. So with something that's unnatural or paranormal, yeah, I'm kind of right at home, because I grew up in something that I acknowledged from a very young age, and I think it made my palate a little more broad in taking in somebody's conversation about things like that,
I think mine is more so in the fact of that whole aspect of like wanting, I'm curious because of the things that I've seen over time, because like you said, why wouldn't I believe in something like this when I believed something like, Christianity and Jesus? You're absolutely right. To where it's this crazy story. Well, okay, well, so are these.
Right.
So when that's like, okay, well, I'm seeing this happen in front of me. Now I want to know more. Not that obviously that's not the same with like religion, but what I mean is in the fact of like the things that I've experienced, it's like, well, now I want to know why. And now I want to know where it's coming from. Now I want to know like what like all of these things. One of the biggest ones that really got me was when we were at Burger King.
Oh yeah, that's actually a pretty wicked story.
Yeah. And long story short, though, guys, there's a local Burger King, and like he said earlier, a lot of the place around here is old Indian burial ground. So there was a story, actually 2 stories. One was my buddy's sister that was the manager there, and one night she was leaving, she was walking out the back door, and to the right was the hot water tank. So they checked it every night, because sometimes the door from the wind and stuff would blow out the pilot light. So they always checked to make sure it was on. She was walking out the door. It was like midnight. She said there was a full-on Indian headdress chief just standing in the corner.
Whew. Dude, that is, that does not just make you shit your pants, dude.
Bro, she immediately called the general manager, even though it was night. She was freaking out. He came down to check anything, and he basically was just like, hey, we know this is like your place. Like, we're sorry, but like, could you please leave my, employees out of this? Please wait to come until after they're gone. Now, nothing happened after that to her. Fast forward a couple of years, that's how we found out about this story. Was we were doing an all-night cleaning after we closed on a summer night. So we were there from like 4 p.m. until like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. when the morning crew came in to start prepping. And we were just deep cleaning, doing all this stuff. My ex was in control. She was supposed to do the bathrooms and stuff. She was in control of all that. So she's in there. And all of a sudden she comes running out, and she's like, the hand dryers are going off. And we're like, whoa, okay. Did you like walk past them? Like whatever. She's like, no, they're like going off and on like quickly. And we're like, okay, whatever. We go in there. We didn't hear anything, of course. So a couple minutes goes past. She comes running out again. We go in there. Me and Brad can hear it now. Then we walk back in because she's like, I told you, the paper machine that gives you the receipt is just spitting out paper. Nobody's around it. Like, there was some weird fucking shit. We all just went, all right, smoke break. We all went outside.
Yep.
So, and it was kind of the same thing. And that's when we found out about the prior incident years prior, where it was like, okay, there is some stuff going on here. And it's all kind of around the same area as like where Aunt Heidi lives, where we live, like, you know, so it's all very close. So like, it makes sense that there's like Indian kind of things happening.
Yeah.
And that is kind of scary.
Yeah, and again, I think it's not even just the fact that I would fear the actual Indian themselves. It's more so that it's such a different thing that you're seeing in front of you. We're like, oh, I'm expecting to see, you know, a guy with a hoodie and a ski mask, not some ripped dude that's loaded with weapons that has feathers from all of his kills.
Yeah.
And it's like there's something intimidating where it was kind of like, nah, dude, you're on my land.
Right.
It's where it's like, remember where you are. And it's like, oh God, like
I think that might have been what it was, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, is that, you know, a lot of times, you know, these spirits and things, I feel like they know they have a lot of power, but they don't use it. And that's what intrigues me. Again, like, why don't you? You know, why is it that you just fuck with people like this? So yeah, it's a whole thing for me.
Yeah. I would have to say that the one that I'm kind of upset that I didn't get to see was the Rider. We lived in a place that essentially had a huge ass backyard with a wonderful fire pit. I still miss it to this day, but it looked over the fields of where like you kind of go out to like where like the rest of like the cornfields and stuff are. It's Ohio. It's corn. Yeah. But but I remember our second mom, BJ. She was living next door to us in the duplex, and I think I was outside the one night. I maybe was old enough. I was smoking a cigarette, and she was out there smoking too. And she said, yeah, we've got a rider. I see him every once in a while, or like he'll pop up and you can hear his horse trot. He'll do his call or like do all of his stuff. And that never scared me. It excited me.
Right.
Because it's just that idea that, you know, if he's somebody that, you know, if that was his area that he was to guard or that was his land, he is still there doing it.
Right.
You know, there's... to me, Native American lore is some of the most beautiful, just amazing things.
It can be.
It's wonderful. Like the idea of like they respect wildlife. You know, it's like they believe everything had a spirit. They believe that everything was to be channeled and to be respected and to you know, to also protect it and to do like there's something very wholesome about it. So seeing
and man, they trip balls.
You're probably gonna freak out and die. No, if you've not seen A Million Ways to Die in the West, that'll mean nothing to you. But no, that was one that always really intrigued me because it would just be so cool to see. I always imagined him as almost like a giant Casper ghost in a way where like like he has like that blue tint to him.
Sure.
And he's just like, again, maybe it's just that idea that he just looks like a normal person, you know, or I don't know. I've never actually seen anything. I've only ever heard things and I've only ever had certain things that have happened around me. I've actually been very numb to a lot. That's kind of what gives me hope about visiting a haunted location is that I'm not really connected, but I don't want my first experience to be when I'm 31 years old and I'm scared shitless because it's the first time I saw an apparition or something. Like I've had friends of mine that have been able to see things and they were like, you don't want to see it. You do not want to see what's really there. Like it's having that friend that complained about, you know, oh, there's something scary at the foot of my bed. And then when the lights get turned on and my parents come in, it doesn't go away. And it just smiles at me like they're going to leave. And it's like, that's the stuff that I don't want to experience, you know, and it's so, but again, to me, I think it is intriguing, you know, in one aspect because there's history there. There's like an understanding of what, you know, actually is, you know, like what is happening here. Like what's the motivation of why these things are like, you know, like why are they doing the things that they're doing?
Yeah.
Mainly too is that the one thing, no matter where I go, that I will not mess with is a Ouija board. I cannot do it. Just because I know that it would get way too in my head and I know that I would probably freak out and just run out and not say goodbye. And that's the worst thing you can do. So, But yeah, that's kind of like where I'm at with it, is that I know that there is something there. It's to be respected.
Yeah.
It's to, you know, like whatever. But yeah, man, getting to see that, all that being said, getting to see that rider would have been really wild. But,
you know,
yeah.
like you said, you know,
Big bunny trail, but yeah.
Well, no, but it's the fact that, like you said, you've never gotten to really see anything. Seeing things is not all it's cracked up to be. I guess the last thing I'll touch on is, I guess one of the scarier things that I encountered was, I guess what I've been told is the crooked man. And, you know, I noticed this very, very pitch black, dark figure with this like bowler hat on, and, you know, very tall. And it was always like in the distance. It was always when I was in a specific spot at where I used to live with my ex, and I would be out in the garage, you know, smoking or whatever. And I would see it, and it would be, you know, 50, 80, 100 feet away. Right. And, you know, after a while, like, you know, a couple of days, couple of weeks, I'd be like, oh, he's closer. Like and then eventually it got to the point after a few months, he was inside the perimeter of like the fence.
Yeah.
And I was, and again, he never moved. He was always just still.
Yep.
Almost like if he stood still, I couldn't see him.
It's like, just turn your back for a second, would you?
Yeah,
It's like, oh,
well, see,
God.
and it wasn't even that, like, because I would test things. He still never moved. It wasn't until like I would see him again that I'd be like, oh, there he is. Oh, he's like another 2 feet.
Now, when you're describing this, is that you've described the pitch black thing as far as like, you know, this is like maybe a shadow person or anything like that. Like, was there any, I don't know if I ever asked you, but like, was there any detail to him at all? Like, was there a face? Was there a coat? Was there
not
like,
really?
Could you tell a separation of like clothes or something? Like,
Yeah, you could kind of see a decent outline of clothing. I guess the best way to explain it, this is going to sound funny, but would be like the Michael Jordan logo, where you can see like the bottom of his pant. Like, people think he wears shorts. He wears it's his track outfit, but
oh really?
For like with his warm up track outfit, and so you can like kind of see vague outlines like on the logo. That's kind of what I would like compare it to, where like it's enough to where you can see it, but it's not full detail.
Right.
You know, I couldn't see like teeth or, you know, like distinguished like facial features or anything, because he was like a dark shadow.
Right.
And it wasn't like a shadow being cast from something. Like, it would be even in like where there was light shining directly down.
Like, he is the shadow.
Basically.
He is just, it's like almost like a negative space.
Yeah. And it was like he didn't care that I could see him. Like, there's no way he didn't know that I could see him, because he was very blatant. It was just the fact of, now when I would focus on it, it was gone. But when I would do one of these and it was just there, and, you know, like I have good eyesight. Like, it's not like my eyes are fucked up or cataracts or anything like that. Like,
right.
But like, you could see it, dude. And he knew what he was doing. And it was, again, I was never afraid of it, but I could tell it was a very threatening situation. Like, as far as the spirit or entity, whatever it was not there for, you know, snacks and, you know, rainbows. So, you know, that's not what he was about. So I don't know whatever happened to him. I don't live there anymore. You know, there were a lot of things, just, you know, the vibe, the aura, the everything around was just always very off. And I think that has a lot to do with it.
It's really interesting, because I personally have never seen this, but except when I was asking about the shadow thing, as far as the detail is concerned, is that at the backyard where the hills were, where the rider was supposed to be, a friend of ours who can see things had stopped over, and she basically told me, don't ever come out here by yourself at dark, like, never. And I said, well, why? Like, what's happening? And she's like, it's around the perimeter. It can see you. It can't touch you, and it hates you because it can't touch you.
You know, it's weird.
So,
That's weird that you say that, because I remember when I would go out there to like smoke or whatever, when I would come up to the house, or when I lived there for a short period of time, you know, I'd be out there all hours of the night. And I don't think it wasn't the field that like freaked me out.
It was the backyard.
It was the backyard. And it wasn't that it freaked me out, but it was always just like, it was like weirdly pitch black. And it was like you couldn't see very far. Like you could see past the yard, but you couldn't see like the end of the yard, if that makes sense.
It was, yeah, because essentially it went down like in a hill and then connected to the cornfields.
Right.
So, yeah.
And so again, it wasn't that it was like it would freak me out, but it was always just like, yeah, there's something there.
Yeah.
But I always just kind of chalked it up in the fact of, it's 2:00 in the morning, you know, I just came home from the bar or something like that, like, or I just came home from Nick's house, like something. But no, that's weird. I never heard that before as far as, you know, don't come out here at night. Well, fucking thanks for telling me, Dick.
What's interesting was that it wasn't until I was an adult and I had spent a lot of time out there. Like, you know, whether it was having fires or if I was smoking a cigarette. You know how many Stone Sour albums I killed on that backyard listening to stuff? You know, like I was out there a lot. And what's weird is that what this person said that they could see were the eyes. The eyes were, I believe, they were red. And there was a couple of times while we were talking, we were out there, and she would look at me and look in the distance and go, God, I fucking hate it when they do that. And I'm like, do what? And I'm like, where is it? And she's like, you don't want to know. And I'm like, it's behind me, isn't it? Like, you know, so, but it wasn't like directly behind me, but it was like, you know, like it always kept its distance. Fast forward, I'm talking to a friend of mine, and essentially what this friend said was that, oh, I've seen orange eyes. We lived in the same area where like all connected by the same field.
Yeah.
And it was really odd how those things happened. But yeah, it's just that detail thing is that it's interesting how some of them show different details or they don't or whatever. But last thing that I'll kind of end on is there was a moment that was so intense between me and my friend Sammy that we actually called the police.
Oh, yeah.
And it was, I think I maybe made a video about it on Kyle Wright 425. It wasn't a scary story. I think it was like a driving vlog. I may have talked about it. But
I think you did. This is the Skinwalker thing, right?
It's what we're assuming is maybe a Skinwalker. Now, what I will say is that I have heard some things when I was still smoking cigarettes, like whenever I would be outside or like certain stuff would happen. There's that whole idea that if they sound far away, they're like right next to you or like whatever. Yeah. So like I would always kind of be like, oh, there's like,
sorry,
you're good. That just scared me. We're talking about paranormal shit. But it's like, you know, like, okay, like I'm hearing, you know, a dog in the distance. Well, I really hope that that's a dog, you know? So, but essentially, what we were doing was that Sammy and I were sitting in my car, and we're sitting in the driveway at her place, and it's in the same field. This is the same friend that saw orange eyes. And mind you, we weren't even thinking about paranormal stuff. Stone Sour's House of Golden Bones Part 2 had just dropped, and we wanted to have a listen and just chain smoke cigarettes and just talk about it and sing along and try to learn songs and dive deep into it. And finally, we were done with the album. We're sitting in the car, and I can't remember what we were talking about, but it was nothing that was even relevant to
trigger you guys.
We were not on edge. There was no, like, we had already like since talked about these things and time had moved on. Like, this is like years after the fact. We heard a woman from the fields scream at the top of her lungs like, I'm being killed by Leatherface scream, and she screamed, help me. But it was like, let out, help me! And we both looked at each other, and it was kind of like, you heard that, right? And Sammy goes inside, talks to her parents. We asked them, hey, she asked them, did you hear anything? Like, you know, they had all the windows open. It was a beautiful night. Like, you know, there was a good breeze, everything. We called the police. They came down. We told them, look, we understand this is very vague. We were kind of like, look, the second we don't, and the officer finished, he's like, the second you don't is when something's going to happen.
Exactly.
Like, I understand. He's like, we know you guys aren't causing trouble. He's like, let us go check it out. They talked to every neighbor on that street. None of them heard anything. Only Sammy and I heard it. Now, does that mean that it's a skinwalker? No. Does it mean that it was a skinwalker? No, or it wasn't. Like, no, like, it's like you can't place it. you don't know. It was one isolated incident that happened, but it's still one that to this day that it pops up on my Facebook.
Oh yeah,
because Sammy posted a status about it. It was like, wow, Kyle and I just heard this shit. This is scary.
You're gonna always remember something like that, man. Like that's gonna be, even if it doesn't pop up on your feed, like you remember shit like that, man.
It's that whole idea of that, you're driving at night and, you stop at, a stoplight and it's like, am I going to see something or is there going to be something there? Like, trust me, I get into my own head sometimes. Sometimes I get a little freaked out or I think about things. Smile did not help. But at the end of the day, I think that where I would probably land as far as when it comes to all these stories and all the things that we've shared, and I'm sure that there's more we could talk about down the road, but really, I would say that I'm definitely a firm believer of whatever this world has for us to discover and also what maybe we should stay away from or whatever. I think that there's something very real. There is a plane that we cannot see. There's things that are happening around us that are unexplainable, and there are people that experience and can see some shit that is really next level in a way that maybe you wouldn't want it. Out of that, I have a lot of respect.
Yeah.
And I try to approach situations in the best way possible and to try to at least hear people out, but also knowing that if I'm in a place where it could be active, I am in and out and I am not causing trouble and I'm just doing my thing. So I've had some places that I've been around recently, and I have been for a while, that have the suspicion of paranormal activity. And it never leaves my mind, but it's not really my main focus. I only think about these things whenever the time's coming. I'm not like a guy that's like, I've got to find answers every day. It's like, no, it's cool to talk about late at night with your friends and get freaked out. So,
right. Yeah, man. Like, and I guess that's kind of where I'm at with it too. Where like, it is fun. I like to still kind of quote scare myself or try to or do whatever. Like, that's why I like horror movies. I go to bed to horror movies. It's just like, I don't know, that's my thing, but having something really happen to you is scary. So like, I don't think that I just take that lightly, because I don't. But at the same time, it's kind of neat. Like, I don't know, like it's kind of cool at the same time, but you're right. There is a limit. You don't want to poke the bear too much. So yeah, dude, this was a fun talk, even though we've already heard these stories and stuff, but telling them, letting people hear this stuff, it's fun. It's weird because everybody has just been saying that they just want to hear us talk, and it was like, all right, well, I mean, here the fuck you go.
We can talk about this, So, but nevertheless, if you guys have stuck around this long through the podcast, thank you so very much. If you've come from Riker Road, let us know, or if you found us another way, drop a comment and let us know. Like the video if you enjoyed this, and subscribe if you want more content. All these podcasts are going to be available on Spotify and everything through Anchor, so you can find all the audio forms there. And I think it was a solid one. Yeah. So either way, until next time, don't use a Ouija board. Keep your nose clean and eat your vegetables. Eric, is there anything else you want to say to everybody? So
no, just cheers, guys.
All right. See you guys. Thank you.